Our Quebec trip in 2017 had two extremes. We started in Quebec City in the Old Town. This is a piece of Europe in North America. Then we traveled 2.5 hours to the northeast, across some rugged country to the Saguenay Lac St Jean area. Unexpectedly, in the Lac St Jean area beyond this uninhabited region, there is farming. But the area was originally developed for lumber and mining. The Saguenay Fjord is a 100-kilometer-long geological feature. It is the longest and the only fjord in North America with settlements. Our hotel in Quebec City looked across the Governor's Park to the St. Lawrence River. It was a short walk to the Dufferin Terrace, a boardwalk on top of the cliff, overlooking the lower town. The Chateau Frontenac Hotel is the most imposing feature on the Dufferin Terrace. As one of the numerous luxury hotels that Canadian Pacific Railway built across Canada in the late 1800s, it is an historic building. The Dufferin Terrace hides the remains of the original French forts and the residences of the early French and British governors. We took a tour underneath the terrace with a Parks Canada guide. It was interesting to see this map from about 1700 with a fairly accurate depiction of North America. The small original British colonies, the rest explored and named by the French, and the Great Lakes. Between 1638 and 1747, there were 3 French governors. From 1763 till 1828, there were 3 English governors. Near here in 1759, on the Plains of Abraham, British forces under General Wolfe defeated the French forces under General Montcalm. Both generals were killed in the battle. The monument on the right commemorates both of them, a typical Canadian compromise since the majority population in Quebec is French-Canadian. From the terrace, we get a glimpse of the citadel that replaced the original wooden palisade. It was built as a result of tensions between the U.S. and British in the early 1800s. The citadel was constructed in the standard British Star design. As well as being an historical site, it is the home station of the Royal 22nd, or Vendouzième Infantry Regiment, known as the Vandoos, of the Canadian Forces. The emblem of the regiment can be seen above the doorway of the battalion headquarters. This is also the residence of the Queen of Canada while she is in the country, and one of the residences of her representative, the Governor-General. In 1943, the Citadel hosted the Quebec Conference to discuss the invasion strategy for Normandy. The old city still has portions of the wall that were built to protect it. Through the Port St. Louis are the buildings of the Upper Town. As well as the Hôtel de Ville, or City Hall.
There's a wire mesh all over.
There is the Morin Centre, containing an English library for the minority of Anglos that live in Quebec City. It features significantly in Louise Penny's book, Bury Your Dead. The many sidewalk cafes and street artists make for a vibrant city. Moving closer to the St. Lawrence River, the statue of Samuel Champlain recognizes his founding of the city in 1608. The Lower Town area particularly epitomizes the European heritage of the city. Although it wasn't a long walk down to the Lower Town, we saved our legs and took the funicular on our numerous visits down there. The narrow streets of the Lower Town are a magnet for tourists, by day and night, with restaurants and gift shops. Place Royale is where Champlain built his first house, where this church is now located. Leaving Quebec City, we took a 20-minute side trip to the Montmorency Falls. We took the cable car to the top of the falls. From the bridge over the falls, we could see the zip line that ran across the falls. We didn't have time to try that out, though. It's a 2.5-hour drive from Quebec City to the Lac St Jean area. I was aware of this area because some friends came from there. The area we drove through is rugged and uninhabited. Lac St Jean is quite large, approximately 20 kilometers by 35 kilometers in size. It took us almost 3 hours to drive around it. There are several marinas on the lake with campsites and a theme park for summer visitors. Because it is well north in the Precambrian rock of the Canadian Shield, I was surprised to see that it is a large farming and dairy area. The area was formed by tectonic shifting, leaving a depression in the shield with a more temperate climate than the surrounding region. Our favorite stop up here was the Trappist monastery outside of Dolbeau. The monastery was originally founded in the 1800s. Due to fires, the current monastery and church are the fourth complex to be established here. The church is modern and simple, both inside and out. In 1939, the monks started making chocolate figurines for Easter as part of a community business development, seen delivering them in 1960. This grew into a major chocolaterie. A specialty when not making Easter figurines is locally picked blueberries in chocolate. Rather than a religious motive, it was the chocolaterie that drew us there. We had a short tour and bought some treats from the shop. Because the monks are all quite old now, they manage the business and employ locals for the actual operation. There are only 9 monks remaining, and they are all in their 80s. As well as an opportunity to chat with one of the monks, Father Marcel Carrier, we took in a photo exhibition showing some history of the monastery. Interesting to see what has changed and what has remained the same. Between Lac St Jean and the Saguenay Fjord is the municipality of Saguenay. It is made up of the towns of Jonquière, Chicoutimi, and L'Abbaye. First settled in 1676 as a French fur trading post, it became a major aluminum producer in 1928. Alcan built a company town in 9 months for 14,000 inhabitants to support the Arvida smelter. In Chicoutimi, we saw one of the smelters. In L'Abbaye, we could see the major bauxite cleaning facility. Just 15 minutes from L'Abbaye, we stayed in the Auberge de la Rivière Saguenay, with a view of the fjord from our room and the dining room. I was surprised to see a large tidal rise of as much as 4.5 meters. The auberge is located at the mouth of the Baie des Ha-Ha, although one explanation of that name is that is what the explorers said when they found the bay was a dead end. The official story is that Ha-Ha was a map marking to indicate no exit from a bay. Recognizing the importance of aluminum in this region, a landmark of L'Abbaye is the Ha-Ha Pyramid, made of aluminum. Close to it is a bridge, also made entirely of aluminum. While we were there, the Grand Voiliers, or tall ships, were in port for a visit. It was difficult to get close to them, but interesting to see them nonetheless. The Blue Nose 2 from Nova Scotia was our favorite. There were also 2 from Holland, 1 from France, and 1 from Maine in the USA. On the outskirts of L'Abbaye is Canadian Forces Base Bagotville. This is a NORAD base, part of the North American Air Defense System. It is home to 425 Squadron equipped with CF-18 fighter jets, and 439 Squadron equipped with Griffin helicopters for search and rescue. It also houses an Air Force museum that we visited on a rainy day. We took a day-long tour on the fjord. Our boat, the Fjord Saguenay II, left from L'Abbaye. We passed the older, slower cruise boat, La Margolene, in the harbor as we left. The gray building on shore is our B&B. Our first stop was Saint-Rose-du-Nord. We had driven there for lunch a couple of days earlier. The drive had been up and down the steep hills like the one seen here. There are very few small settlements like this along the rocky shore. Next we went to Baie Éternité. It is in Parc National du Fjord du Saguenay. Despite the name, this is a provincial park, emphasizing the status of Quebec within Canada. The walls of the fjord drop off steeply, so the boat could stay very close to the shore. On the rocky point at the entrance to the bay is a gigantic statue of the Virgin Mary. Entering Baie Éternité, we encountered kayaks, lots of them. This suspension bridge is apparently for really enthusiastic hikers. Next stop, Lac St Jean. As we entered the Lac St Jean Bay, we could see that this is a larger village than others on the fjord. The marina and kayak rentals attract visitors. We decided to have lunch at the restaurant overlooking the harbor on an upstairs veranda. A tour after lunch took us to a covered bridge with a colorful statue in front. And to the church, of which the villagers are quite proud. Beside the religious statue is another colorful, comical statue. This ended our visit to Lac St Jean. We headed back to our tour boat and returned to La Baie and our B&B. The Musée du Fjord is in an unremarkable building in La Baie, but it contains a couple of impressive exhibits. There is a small aquarium where we could get a close-up view of marine life found in the fjord. The Greenland shark is reported to have been found here in the great depths. The other really striking part of the museum is a multimedia presentation that was done better than any I've ever seen. We entered into a transporter that looks like it came from a science fiction movie.
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs.
The pilot tells us that the vessel is about to take off. The history of the Saguenay fjord covers 100 million years.
900 millions d'années. Son survol aujourd'hui nécessitera quelques sauces. Veuillez par ailleurs prendre note des sorties de secours propres à cet appareil. Ici votre commandant. Nous devrions avoir le feu. Personnel de bord, vérification des segments croisés.
After we take off, the windows are uncovered. The seats move, giving us the sensation of flight.
Mesdames et messieurs, nous survolons présentement les hauts plateaux du Cap Trinité. Nous apercevons sous peu ces parois verticales qui s'élèvent à 450 mètres.
We can see we are flying above the fjord. Below, there are some whales. We dive into the water. The whales swim past us.
Mesdames et messieurs, nous amorçons notre exploration sous-marine.
Finally, we dive to the bottom of the fjord, 250 meters below the surface. Between the boat trip and a visit to the Musée du Fjord, there was a lot to learn about this fjord. Similarly to the anomalous farming area around Lac St Jean, the Saguenay Fjord is also thought to have been formed by tectonic shifts. I was fascinated to learn about the geological aspects and the fluid dynamics of this unique feature. Earlier I mentioned the tide that makes its way inland to the top of the fjord. Although the fresh, warm water flows down the fjord on the surface, the tide brings cold, saline ocean water up the fjord. The cold, saline water is heavier than the warm, fresh water and flows under the warm water. The lower image on this screen is a cross-section view of the fjord. The yellow line indicates the sill, where the Saguenay Fjord meets the St. Lawrence River. This sill has a major impact on the tidal flow into the fjord. The following images show the tidal flow at different times of the year. This incredibly interesting natural feature was a marvelous way to end our trip. As mentioned in the introduction, this trip contained a wide range of interesting topics. The European city of the old town of Quebec City, the anomaly of major dairy and farming in the middle of the Canadian Shield, the important aluminum production center of Chicoutimi and Jonquière, the museum at Canadian Forces Base Bagotville, and the astonishing fjord of Saguenay. It was another enjoyable trip, revealing new, fascinating information, as well as revisiting sites we enjoyed previously.